Do you know what the Jimi Hendrix chord is and how it's used? Hey there, I'm Lee from Play Guitar Academy. I help frustrated guitar players get back to getting better at the guitar. I'm so happy that you're here with me today. In fact, this week I'm doing a whole series on Jimi Hendrix chord work. This is the last video in the series, and I'm picking apart the 7♯9 chord. This is the chord that Jimi built his most popular songs all around this chord. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, but before I do, would you take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell? That way we make sure that we stay connected. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The next thing would be one of the chords that you would see in a lot of his very, very famous songs, and that is the 7♯9 chord. I'll do it in, here's a D, 7♯9. Okay. This is also called the Jimi Hendrix chord. He's one of those few performers who gets a chord named after him. So that's I'm sure he would love that. There's the James Brown chord and the Jimi Hendrix chord, which are really only there's one note, a half step difference in one of the notes between the two chords. So you got your James Brown and your Jimi Hendrix chord. So let's talk a little bit about this chord. I'm doing it in D. And what we have is basically a seventh chord, a dominant seventh chord. If you look at the first three notes here, we have on the A string at the 5th fret, we have our D, we have our root note. On the D string on the 4th fret, we have our F sharp. So that's the 3rd of D. So at this point, we're headed towards like a D major type sound. But then we get to our next note here, which is tucked underneath. It's at the 5th fret as well, but on the G string. That's the flat 7th. That gives you your dominant sound. That's like a funk type sound, a blues type sound, or in jazz, a 5-to-1 type sound. The dominant chords, they always feel like going somewhere. They have a little bit of tension to them, all on their own. But what Jimi did was he added a note to this right here. I'm going to show you in the video. I'm going to put my pinky on the B string on the 6th fret. Take a listen to that. Is that a happy sound? Not especially. Is it a sad sound? Not especially. It's a tense sound. There's some notes that are kind of rubbing against each other. But it was the perfect sound for the style of music that he was wanting to play. So let's talk about this note I just added. We have, this is in the key of D, I've added an F note. Now remember, before I added an F sharp. So if we play those two notes together, listen to that. Terrible, right? That's when two notes are together, it's like playing a white key and a black key that are right next to each other on the piano, right? So we have the familiar sound of the 7th chord with the tense sound of the note that's called the sharp 9. And where do we get that? Remember when we did the sus2, the add 9 from the last video? If you have your root, you go up a whole step. That's your 2nd note. Also the 9th. They both share the same. The note shares the same. Two names for the same note. So if we were to raise that one more, give you a sharp 9. Okay, so this is not a functioning note. The functioning note of the chord is the major 3rd. Okay, that's how the chord works. The sharp 9 is adding this tension to the top of it. So I've used to play this a lot in jazz. We would add a sharp 9 to a flat 9 to a 1 chord. Okay? We're adding this line. that resolves to the fifth note of a major. Flat nine, sharp 9, flat 9 to your 1 chord. So tense, even tenser, resolve, right? So basically what he did is, instead of using it as functioning as a chord that instead of functioning as a tension chord and a passing chord, something that's moving on to something else, he was focusing that sound, making that sound the song. You heard it in Purple Haze. You heard, I think Foxy Lady, I think, has it in it as well. And when most people think of the Jimi Hendrix voicing as this one that I'm playing right here on the center 4 strings, but a lot of times with what he was out singing and playing, he couldn't get to that in time to make it. He would have to start voicing that on the top 4 strings. In fact, the more I watched of his live playing, he rarely used this one right here. He would use a different voicing of it. Actually, same voicing, but it's voiced on the top 4 strings. So instead of having your pinky up ahead, when you voice this on the D, the G, the B, and the high E strings, you have, let's do this in E. It's easier to demonstrate. So we have the E at the 2nd fret of the D string, G sharp on the 1st fret of the G string, and then we have 2 3rd frets on the B and the high E string. And you'd see him not really even playing the whole chord a lot, playing those top 2 notes. Because the fuzz, if you try to even play like 3 or 4 notes at the same time, it would have a hard time getting through the fuzz there. So how about soloing over the 7 sharp 9? What's some ideas about that? Jimmy played the minor pentatonic mostly over that when he was soloing over in that section where that chord would be. And that works. It sounds wonderful on the tension, because the minor pentatonic has the minor 3rd already in it. And in blues, we have a lot of going from minor to major. We're used to hearing that sound of playing minor pentatonic over a chord with a major 3rd in it. It works really good. But there's other ideas. If you go into jazz, we're not going to delve into that too much. But the diminished that starts on the half step. See if I can get a loop here. Let's see. The half step, whole step, diminished scale is really a scale that outlines arpeggio notes. So if you have an E7 chord, we're going to add some half steps to each one of those. So we're going to have one in front of the root, but the rest of the notes are behind. So here's root, 3rd, 5th. Let's just do it in 1 octave. Root on the, let's say an E is at the 12th fret, and then we have 12th fret, 11th fret on the A string. That's our 3rd, our G sharp. And then we have our B note, which is at the 14th fret of the A string. And then our flat 7th, which is at the 12th fret of the D string. To get this half step, whole step sound, we're going to add a half step above the root, and all the other notes get a half step behind it. It's a really neat sound. A lot of people will play the diminished scale, and they'll automatically think, "Oh, this is strange," and I'm not really getting a whole lot out of it. And then what ends up happening is once they start seeing it and seeing where it lies over top of arpeggios, especially arpeggios for this song and for this chord, it works out perfectly, that it really makes a lot of sense. So that's a tip for getting some ideas for the diminished. And there's some other ones too. We're not going to go into the altered scale. People call it the super Locrian or the diminished whole tone scale. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Just for making it all the way to the end of this video, I've got a very cool gift for you. It's my free blues soloing course. It's called Get Your Blues Solos Under Control. This gives you the right foundations to move your lead guitar playing forward fast. It's at freeblueslesson.com, but you can also find that in the description below. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you on the next video.